So, we are back with episode 3 of the Into the Unknown podcast. Dan is your host with my co-host and always one and only Mr. Scott Landis. How you doing this week, Scott?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I couldn't do it without you, man. And if I did, I would be stuck with someone. Who knows? No, of course. But we have a lot to cover this week. We do want to start off with some news and updates, just some of the things that have been happening with the Forbidden Mountain. In case you missed it, if not, check it into it. Specifically on the audio side, I know we have just transferred into starting on the podcast platform, so some of the audio users might not always follow us yet on any of those platforms. All of those, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, all that stuff is always in the description links for all the podcasts, so you can definitely find any of that stuff any there, but I wanted to just shout it out and just go through some of the things that we have kind of started with, Scott. So let's start about the first one, and I just want to bring it up. I don't even want to talk about it that long. I didn't want to do that. That's not what I wanted to do, guys. I didn't want to cancel myself, but I wanted to talk about the shop we opened up. This is just for merchandise. This was just like a stupid random idea that started this was like probably like 6 weeks back when I told Scott at the end of a gameplay video to get hooked, and I just started thinking of other different designs that we can utilize within the Disney Lorcana. So it came to a couple of these. Ironically, there's like other versions of these that haven't been let into the actual web page yet because they're under review. I'm not really sure, but apparently Got Broom might be too much like Got Milk. So I don't know. It's under review. Who knows? But that's why you see like 2 Get Hooks, but like not 2 You're Welcomes or 2 Got Brooms, because for some reason those are under review. I don't really know why, but I just wanted to touch on it. The website will always be in the links for all these things. So if you want to help support it, you want to little sportage of the Forbidden Mountain at Gen Con or your locals when they open up, we would really appreciate it. You can buy all sorts of stuff, which I think I really enjoy. And for the record, like this is like completely through this website. So even we're going to talk about the new Merlin card. Don't worry. Even if you you just want like a coffee mug, like you could just buy any of this crap. So I don't have any control of what the items actually are. It's just all run through them. It's just our designs that we upload to it. But even if you're like a content creator yourself and you want to just make one of these stores, it was really simple. So like, don't be afraid to go and put your design on a shirt and see if you have any, family or friends that want to support you guys. But that's enough for that. We're going to get rid of this one. And we're going to talk about specifically in this podcast, the SWOT analysis of inks. And we've been doing this now for, I guess, a month since like early June when some of those spoilers hit, maybe like mid-June, I think it was. And they've been good. They've been well received. People really seem to be interested in them and things like that. So I'm definitely excited to really, now that we're like halfway, I guess, through all the cards. Or like, yeah, almost halfway. Some of the inks obviously have way more cards, so it's easier to address those than others. Like, some of them only have 11 cards, so it's like, well, this is what we have right now, but we'll get through it. So let's bring it in. Obviously, we're here for Disney Lorcana, and we haven't had a chance to talk about this together, Scott. So let's talk about the SWOT analysis overview, because this was definitely one of your ways that you wanted to present cards and decks to the community. So why don't you tell me a little bit how we got to the SWOT analysis overview?
See, you wanted a universal way of analyzing things on a level playing field, and I mean, through my various degrees and things like that in my various life, the SWOT analysis is something I've used quite often when looking at like different options for things. So when it came to like a level playing field, like different card types and things like that, it seemed like a good way to use it, especially when you put it in this context. I think it works.
Yeah, I mean, it's gone, pretty good so far. We've seen lots of different uses of it as we're going through it. I do want to point out that this was completely designed by Scott here. So like this is
Yes.
this is exactly how he pitched me on the SWOT analysis. What's up, Lorcana? Welcome to the stream. So what I got to shout out for our boy over at Disney Lorcana is, why is Flounder the weakness, Scott? Why is he the weakness?
Because I asked Citizen Lorcana who I should use to represent the weakness in the SWOT analysis. He said you should use Flounder. So I used Flounder.
I don't even believe that. I can't even believe that he used
totally
that.
True.
Well,
so I found the saddest picture of Flounder I could find.
That's fair. So nonetheless, we have been breaking down all the cards using strength, weakness, opportunity, and threats. And that's exactly what we're going to do today for the inks. So we're going to get right into this because it might take a little while. We're going to do our best to get through it as fast as possible. So we're going to get into the Amber first. So Amber currently has 23 cards revealed, which is the most by any of the inks. And specifically,
okay.
It is, yes. This is by far like four more cards, I think, than any other ink. And this little text box here that we have is number 2. This is like directly from the Disney Lorcana website, from their, I guess, reimagined image of what Amber is supposed to represent in the game. So Amber Glimmers are purposeful, patient, and dedicated. They are able to pursue causes and ambitions with a single-minded persistence. They often work within communities, either from above as a leader or from within as a healer, bodyguard, or loyal follower. So like when you read that paragraph and we think about all the cards that we already have, I think it sums it up pretty well, actually. I was actually pretty impressed with this definition of it, because some of the other descriptions that we're going to get into, like, it's hard to see that yet because we just don't have enough cards to really embody the paragraph. But for Amber, you can definitely picture that. So we're going to do this freestyle here. We don't have slides for the things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Scott, we're going to go back and forth, and he's going to, we're going to basically get through this as fast as we possibly can. So Scott, tell me, what are the strengths currently for Amber?
Swarming the board is what I find their biggest strength to be. The two, obviously, the 1-drop Stitch card is just a 2/2 for 1, but the other 2 Stitch cards are the Rockstar and Surfer are build around cards, and they both want multiple other characters to be in play. So really, as it stands right now, those are the 2 cards that you really want to build around. So you basically you have the ability to flood the board because there are still no revealed AoE type cards. But even if there were, both those cards take advantage of having cards in play, and Stitch Rockstar, as long as he survives a turn, you pretty much you just turn over your hand every single turn, and you just continuously add threats to the board. And like I said, without AoE in the format, there's no your opponent just a lot of times just can't keep up. And there's just an air of inevitability to it. But the other cards that they have, until today, they had Hey as a supporter. They had you have Goofy as a bodyguard. So throughout the curve, you have other characters that don't just I just challenge and I have really decent stats. They actually all have decent abilities besides what they do. So for me, as it stands right now, as you said, Amber has a ton of cards that are actually revealed. And for me, they're one of the inks you can actually build your deck around because of those synergies that they have.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to tack on, just because you didn't mention her yet, is Moana. Moana seems like a good card in everything that you want to compare it with other princesses from other colors, but it does not feel that it's just there yet. So it is another card similar to how I feel about both of the Stitches, is that it's very easily paired probably with other inks, that it complements a lot of the other inks really, really well. And maybe that's still because of the amount of cards that it has compared to other cards. So it's a little hard to judge it a little bit, but the real truth is that it adds a layer of synergy within itself, but it also seems so complementary so far, which I think is one of the more interesting things about it.
Yeah, you don't the little characters that you generally don't want to draw in the late game. As long as you draw the combo pieces or the synergy pieces, I guess you should say, in the mid and late game, they don't really hurt you, which right now is pretty unique for Amber for me. compared to other colors.
Right. All right. So what about the weaknesses?
I mean, their characters just aren't challenge impressive, and a lot of them also are very low in lore. I don't think they have. Well, I mean, they have like a 2 lore for 3, like the Mickey Mouse and things like that. But the ones that you generally want to be playing with Stitch Rockstar and things like that, only LeFou has 2 lore, so you aren't necessarily putting a ton of pressure on your opponent after you play them. So you have to rely on basically getting like little bits of lore as the game goes on, and then basically having a couple turns in the late game that push you over the edge. So like I don't want to say that like their guys are like weak to be challenged or anything like that, because you just continuously flood the board with them. So it really doesn't matter that they're taken out of combat, because it's just really hard to gain too much board advantage of them, because you basically just every turn, if you don't take out Stitch, you're just refilling your hand like all the time. Or if you leave like too many characters in play and you play the 7-drop Stitch, you're refilling your hand almost every single turn. I guess you know, one weakness would be basically losing Rockstar off the board. So he's weak to like the big removal, like Let It Go or Dragonfire. And basically like if you put him in harm's way because his 3 lore is so tempting, you're probably going to just auto lose him to things like Amethyst as well with all the rush characters. So, you know, that's the only weakness, is that it's heavily dependent on Rockstar being in play and staying in play. But I mean, they also have the one thing we also didn't mention under strength is they have recursion as well with Hades. So you can always just get him back. It just depends on whether or not like you're falling too far behind to do that over a course of usually like 2 turns. But if you can continuously add like ink to your field to be able to play like say they play the first time you play Rockstar, you can't afford to, you know, you might be able to afford to play one other guy the same turn, especially if you shift them out. But if you like Hades him back the next time you play him, if you don't shift him, for example, it may be you want to make sure the second time you play him that you're also drawing cards with him immediately as well. So it has a lot of ways of getting back, but it can put you far behind on tempo if he gets taken out by like a Dragonfire or a Let It Go.
Yeah, I think I wrote up in my notes was like they don't have any character, I think, with more than 4 strength.
Okay.
So it's like you said, like they don't challenge very well at all, but they challenge in numbers.
Right.
So that's the big board. Now, a lot of them have some big booties, which helps. You know, like the Carefree, the Surfer Stitch has 8 health. Goofy has 6 health. The Rockstar Stitch has 5, which is like it's still okay when you shift him. You know, at 6 costs, a little more dangerous, but you know, none of the cards have, like I said, I don't think anything aside from the Surfer Stitch is the only one with 4 strength. I don't think anything has 5 yet. So it is something to note that when it comes to challenging, they might be a little bit under par, and it could cause unfavorable trades and things like that. But like you said, if you have all this draw power and all this synergy to constantly keep them in play, then it doesn't feel as bad because you're just always reinventing the wheel almost with just here's more guys, here's more guys, here's more guys. Yeah. So tell me about the opportunity of Amber.
You generally want to you can pair the deck with almost any other color as it stands right now, but like I think the biggest opportunity for them is probably pairing it with like either like Sapphire or Ruby. Typically, like Sapphire gives you a really good 2-drop with 2 lore right now with that you can also use with Rockstar. You can also pair it with Amethyst because of the 1-drop Maleficent. I've also seen people pair it with Steel pretty effectively because of the removal actions. Allows you to because I know Stitch, for example, is very susceptible to Elsa. So if you play Smash, it gives you an out to Elsa. Because honestly, it doesn't really matter what you pair it with. Like the synergy is the same no matter what color you're pairing it with. So the one deck I saw that they used it with Steel was intelligent because they understood what the weakness of the deck was and tried to cover it by using the second color. So I thought that was really smart. So in anyone I don't know that you need necessarily the card draw of Amber, but a lot of their smaller characters are very good, like Pascal and One Drop Maleficent and things like that. So that's where that would come into play. And like I said, with Steel, you get the removal. So that's where I would look.
Yeah, I definitely think, like I said, this is, to me right now, it's maybe aside from Amethyst, it's definitely the bigger support ink in general, where like you're just constantly able to go like, oh well, I can just play Amber with this, and I can just play Amber with that, because like you said, all of your combination pieces, it's not really taking away from anything that anything else is doing. So it's not like you're harming synergy in any which way. If anything, you're just increasing synergy, because you're like, well, this package or this engine just like accelerates all other synergies anyway, which is
right.
I think it's pretty cool. It's pretty important. I think it's what makes Amber, pretty powerful in general. So let's talk about, our threats. What's our biggest threats that we can assess so far?
I mean, the biggest known threat is whether AoE exists in the game and kind of removal on a more than one character scale. Even if there's like do 2 damage to 2 characters, like type of situation, like like put 2 down or whatever, however, like a fire the cannons for 2 guys or something like that. Like even something like that would be hurtful to this deck, because like we said earlier, the characters just generally are like, other than Mini, just aren't going to survive something like that. I also think that like early game rush can be a problem for them to take out some of the characters. Trying to, like, you have to make sure that one drop Stitch stays alive so you can shift into him and things like that. So that can be dangerous. You can't really play the Surfer without having 2 other guys in play. So it can be tough to to make sure that you're not leaving too many of your guys susceptible. But the biggest threat that there is, in my opinion, right now that exists in the game, without looking at things that are like potential, to me, is Elsa being able to exert the Rockstar when you don't want him to get into combat. And because this color doesn't have any direct damage or any kind of removal or anything like that, you have to draw your other colors worth of removal in order to get her off the board, or else like your whole plan can just be ruined by 1 card.
Yeah, it's definitely really hoping for a world with not a ton of AoE. Because if that's what happens, then like it's weird. So like the Rockstar Stitch has at least like a recovery to it. Obviously the Surfer Stitch does not at all. It's like the opposite. It's like, oh, the AoE, and you're like, oh well, now I just have this 7 cost dude that only 2 lures. Like he's just like he's not like he's the worst card ever, but he's definitely not what you need him to be in those moments. So I definitely agree there. The lack of removal also may really, it might not harm Amber, but it might force you into specific combinations of inks, because like you might, like, you can't just, if you don't have an answer to like a Maui, or you don't have an answer to a Mickey Mouse, like a Brave Little Tower, then like you can do all the stuff in the world, but if they're able to at least keep up with you, these cards are going to go above and beyond to put them ahead, and you just don't have answers to it. So you're going to definitely be relying on your your other inks that you're pairing with. So, but all in all, let's just say grade 1 to 10 so far for Amber. What would you give it?
It's like a 7 or an 8, I would say.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
But it's pretty much really all in on 1 deck as it stands right now. Otherwise, it's still like 7 or 8.
Yeah, that's fair. And like I said, most cards so far, but there's plenty of room for Moana to still shine. I think they already have 2 items, so I don't know if we're gonna get anything like cool like that. We only have what Be Our Guest as our song.
Yeah.
So like, oh no, wait, is Part of Your World a song?
Oh yeah, Part of Your World is a song.
Yeah. So like, we'll have to see what else comes along with those things. Yeah. So we'll break on. We're going to go on to Amethyst. Amethyst currently has 18 cards, and the description that Disney, or that Ravensburger, gives Amethyst is: Amethyst glimmers are wondrous for this and the other worldly ink of sorcerer sages, animated objects, and other glimmers who use their special powers to achieve their aims. They are incredibly powerful when they have access to their amazing abilities, but may land in trouble if they're stripped of those or tap into power they can't control. So yeah, like, this is pretty good, right? Like, this is another one that I think the description was like just A+, because even the card that we have on screen here, Zeus, is just the epitome of that entire thing.
Yeah,
Which I thought was cool. But yeah, I mean, I think Amethyst is in a really good position so far. It's in such a good position that I think you even have said this in your in the meta report. It was like this already feels like a complete thing. So since it already feels complete, since it already feels like it has impactful cards all over your curve, up and down, the ability to, you know, refill your hand with certain cards or even replace themselves and things like that. Like Amethyst already feels so fluent, which is obviously like already part of the strengths, but like it's crazy to think that we only have 18 cards for it so far, and I already feel like it's playable, like beyond playable. So do you have any other strengths that you just like want to add to that, Scott?
Card draw.
Yeah.
The 3-cost Maleficent and Friends on the Other Side synergy is absolutely ridiculous.
Right.
I literally can't imagine them printing a better song than Friends on the Other Side. Like I just can't fathom how there could be anything where all you have to do is tap a character or exert a character and you get to draw 2 cards, like, and it doesn't cost you anything, and you still get all your ink to use for other character.
I guess not to go too far off base here, but like, how much better is Friends compared to Be Our Guest?
It's the synergy with the Maleficent that makes it really, really strong, and the synergy with the fact that they have 3 playable 3-cost characters in Elsa, Rafiki, and that Maleficent that you always want to play. That you never like. The thing with Be Our Guest is you may not want to exert a 2-cost character to play it.
Right.
I mean, I think you should to save yourself the ink to play the character that you typically get off it, but it like with Friends on the Other Side, you don't want to exert your Elsa. You can exert your Rafiki because you already used him once the turn before,
right.
And you can certainly exert the 3-cost Maleficent at basically no downside. So
yeah, I mean, the thing is with both of those cards in general is that your Rafiki got rushed, so if it's still there,
right,
you're like, okay, I'm losing out on a lore, but I'm gaining 3 resources, so like the give and take there is just, it's unfair. And it's the same thing with Maleficent. Maleficent comes into play. She goes, "Oh, I replaced myself, and then I'm going to draw you 2 more cards," which is where I think it is. But I don't think Be Our Guest is like that far behind.
No,
I do think that it's the fact that it costs 2 is what makes it a little more unique for me, because later in the game it could end up being more relevant, and because it's just a lesser character that you have to worry about tapping or exerting on a given turn to sing it. But I don't know. I think the cards are close. So how about our weaknesses? What's currently, you know, what I'm actually curious what you're going to say here, because I don't think it has a lot.
By itself, the 2-drop characters are weak. You have to supplement them with other inks. The late game past 4, if you need to have one, which is, you know, debatable, out of the color itself is pretty weak. Like, you're not going to play Sven. So, and elusives, it's weak to elusives. No, I'm to evasives. Sorry, I always say elusives.
I was going to chime in, but come on, man.
It's weak to evasives, because all their removal is rush based. I mean, it's very good and a lot of card advantage. That's the other thing, is they don't just have like actual card advantage; they have a lot of virtual card advantage as well.
Right.
So evasives are the biggest weakness that they have. But all that could be solved with another ink.
Yeah.
So it's not a big deal.
Yeah, and when in doubt, you just pump your Pascal. It's fine.
Right. That's true. It's true.
So what about the opportunity? Because it sure has a lot of it.
Pairing it with any one of the colors that make up for its weaknesses is just so easy because of all the card draw.
Yeah.
So you pretty much can just like whatever you need and whatever you think you're going to be like facing off against in a larger setting. Like if you need removal, again, you just go into Sapphire or Ruby. like straight removal. If you need like small character removal, you just go straight into steel. If you need like whatever you need, if you want to just have more board presence, you can just go into emerald. I haven't seen it be. I mean, you can play it. You can play a different flavor with amber, as we talked about before, and still play all the card draw, obviously. So the card draw it has currently just is so smooth that you're going to want to play anyway. That it's just so easy to and really push it over the edge.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean it's really great. The late edition so far of Rafiki and Zeus have just proven to be, it's like they're not removal, but they are removal the moment you start treating them as such. And even though they're uninkable, it almost doesn't even matter, because as long as you can have your friends on the other side to refill your hand on 3 and keep moving the game forward, you're not really going to have too many problems inking. And then like the scarier thing about it is like some of the other options that you have in the particular ink, they don't even feel as necessary anymore because of these cards just being able to dominate board presence.
Right. Yep.
Which is the craziest thing about all of it. So what are our current threats?
The number of uninkables is getting up there. Yeah. So like when you go into other ink colors, you just have to be careful like what other uninkables you're using. And then if I assume when we have like a full set, like as we start to get more and more uninkables, you're going to start to be like, okay, I'm running out of room here.
Right.
So like there's already certain uninkables. I think it's dangerous to run like you can't just run the 1-cost Maleficent with Rafiki, with Zeus, with like all this stuff. So it can be tough to get to that point. But the way the cards stand right now, you can really make up for the fact that you have a lot of uninkables by just playing smart. So
I'm going to highlight this real quick, see if it works here. So the songs are threats. I'm not exactly sure what this comment means. If you want to follow up, I would love to answer, because I'm not exactly sure what specifically, because I'm more just curious if it means like opposing songs that I can't really think of, or I mean the songs themselves they're obviously threats, but in a good way for you. They're strengths.
Yeah. Right now, I'm sure there'll be at least 1 or 2 more.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, so let's move on to everyone's favorite color, green. I'm just kidding. I like the color green. I love Genie. So a perfect opportunity for Emerald here. So Emerald currently has only 11 cards. That's a lot lower than the first 2 we talked about. This is what Ravensburg has to say about Emerald. Emerald Glimmers are flexible, gifted with the ability to adapt to challenging circumstances. They are never caught off guard, quick thinking, but not necessarily book smart. They navigate their environment, whether physical or social, natural or artificial, with ease. This is one of the ones where, like, when I read it, I could pinpoint certain cards.
Yeah.
But like, it's hard to like grasp that whole thing right now. I mean, like you just look at like Jumba and you're like, okay, well, like Jumba's just like this, just big dude. I guess he's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna brunt my way through this. So like, and then like you think about Genie, and Genie's like this other like off-putting dude where he's just like, oh, like I can't do everything that I want to. I can't be the perfect card, but I can be this really powerful card if you're worth paying the cost for me. But yeah, I mean, it was, the description is very interesting. It'll be nice to see more cards to see if we can match that description a little bit better. But let's break into it, Scott. What do we have for strengths for Emerald so far?
Board control with all the bounce. So Genie and Cruella really set your opponent back on tempo a lot. Genie's also win condition. He's just really, really good. I would say like board presence is really like what I really like about them. Like Jumba, Genie, 5-cost Beast can be really good there. I really like Cruella in that spot. So yeah, that's where I really like them.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because it's like I said, it's only 11 cards,
yeah.
But half of them are really impactful.
Yeah.
So like that's like the biggest thing right now is it's very easy to just play 20 Emerald cards in a deck and be like pretty content with it. And obviously you can play up, more. But there's definitely like certain things that when they hit the table, like Cruella, she looks pretty innocent, but repetitiveness with Genie just creates kind of this like really solid overlap. If that's what Emerald's going to be about, then they're definitely going to be one of the more annoying decks to play against, probably. What about our weaknesses? What do we have for weaknesses for Emerald?
No 1-drops. 2-drops or Aladdin's really bad.
Unless you shift, right? Is that his like only purpose?
He sits there on the board and does nothing. So yes, I guess that's what he does.
Yeah.
I can't stand Cheshire Cat for somebody that mentioned it in chat. I don't think it does nothing.
We'll point out Lorcana Cast.
It does absolutely nothing.
The Cheshire Kitty. I am with Scott. I'm not a fan of the card at all. So
if it was a 3-3, if it was a 3-3-2, it would be better than it is now.
I'm overly prepared to be wrong that the cat is good, but right now,
not a fan.
I'm out.
I also really like Peter Pan. I didn't mention that during strengths.
Oh yeah, Peter Pan. Sure. Real good
cards. So I mean, I would say they also they can be swarmed pretty easily because their abilities are usually on defense, not on offense. So like they have to, like Cruella, like they're not going to send a bunch of guys into her if they don't need to. So, just what happens. So
right. What I found, and this was just like mere days after Genie was released, is that I found that I was almost trapping myself when playing Genie, and I think this is going to be just like a learning curve for players getting used to the Cruellas and the Genies of the world and like how to really best utilize them. I was always looking for the best opportunity.
Sure.
When realistically, like, you just need him to do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, not only is he, in some ways time walk your opponent, which is, like that you just literally remove an entire turn from them, but he's still a giant, like he's still just a dude on the field, and he has 2 lore and he has evasive and he just does all this other stuff on top of being a nuisance. So like that's like just the one thing is that I feel like the cards like the Beast Within or
Beast is Mine.
The Beast is Mine, yeah. Like these cards, like they create these awkward decision points that maybe you're always looking for like the absolute best out of them, and I think that you just need to get your use out of them if you're deciding to play these in a particular fashion. What's our opportunity so far?
So that was a good segue because I think the biggest opportunity for them is trying to understand where the Reckless cards come into play.
Yeah.
I've thought Iago is not bad, even though he really doesn't do a whole lot other than kind of take a turn away from like one of your opponent's characters. Obviously, he just eats Pascal for breakfast, but like, it's like the Beast's Mind is just very expensive for what it does.
Yeah.
So I don't know why that card has to cost 3. It just takes up too much of your turn to almost do nothing. But in fairness, like you can get to a situation where like your only guy on board is Jumba, and it's like, go ahead, you have to that 4/4 has to challenge Jumba or Sing, which is the biggest issue with Reckless.
Yeah.
So I think if there's more synergy with the ability to use Reckless, then I think that's probably their biggest opportunity. The other opportunity outside of their color is just that they have a lot of really good support cards. They just are a lot of uninkable ones. That's the only issue.
Yeah, I don't want to go on a tangent, but the Beast's Mind is a card that I think it's my least favorite card in the game.
Fair.
It's only because the precedent that it sets for the game, I think, is so poor.
Sure.
We're supposed to play this game where there's no interaction on our opponent's turns, which is completely fine when done well. There's nothing wrong with those things. It doesn't take strategy away at all. But a card like Beast Within in a game like this is just like creating awkward board clutter and like causing so much like nonsense confusion that I can't stand it. So like it's the ability of Reckless as a whole, but at least with like Iago is still in play.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
You can kind of like the Beast Within. You almost have to like treat it as like an Oblivion Ring or something like that from Magic the Gathering, where it's like, okay, I'm going to leave my action in play on that guy so we don't forget that he's supposed to do the thing.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah,
I hate the whole precedent of it, but other than that,
it's very fair.
Whatever. So, what are our threats for Emerald so
far? That their best cards are uninkable, and that their best cards are all like 5 and 6 cost guys.
Yeah.
I don't like their lower end of the curve is interesting with like, but it doesn't trade well at all with the board.
Right.
So like Cruella does not trade well with the board, but so she just kind of sits there and gains lore or whatever. But I still think she's good. And like Peter Pan usually just really hard to get card advantage with him, but he's real. I still like him a lot. And then a lot of like, you know, right now Steamboat Willie's fine for what he is, but like
he's way better than I originally gave him credit
for. Right, but that's like where we're at with these lower end curve characters to try to gain any kind of advantage. So it has to be used as a support color, and a lot of its best cards are uninkable. So like you're just left in a situation where like how much of this can I really play in one deck, given the fact that I'm already supporting with at least like 6 to 8 uninkables. So that's the biggest threat. Yeah.
Right. And again, only 11 cards. So
yeah.
A lot of room to grow, which makes it a little bit harder to kind of truly give a fair SWOT to, but
yeah, that's fair.
What are you going to do? All right. So let's move on to our next wonderful color here, which is Ruby. Ruby also only has 11 cards revealed, which is crazy.
It has like 11 words to describe it, which I also thought was unfair.
Right. Like, it's just crazy, right? So Ruby Glimmers are daring. They use their speed and bravery to defy the odds. They are often warriors, explorers, and daredevils. This explanation instantly made me understand Rapunzel even more, which was a plus because Rapunzel being made into a warrior into this world of Lorcana is something we have not seen in previous at really much at all. So really cool to see that like this is like that automatically lives by this description, which is great. And for what it's worth, like pretty much all of the cards really do that, except for like the debate for Tigger, I guess. Like what makes Tigger a warrior or an explorer or a daredevil?
He's a daredevil. He's bouncing around.
I guess he's a Tasmanian daredevil. Sure.
Yeah.
Whatever. But yeah, all in all, this is another difficult one. It's been, it has some of the most powerful cards in the game. Maleficent, Blade Little Tailor, Aladdin, Dragonfire, right? Like all of these cards are just great cards. And it's funny because in the recent weeks, they've had a couple of cards spoiled with like Tibbs and Rapunzel, but that's really all we've gotten so far. So there's a lot left to be found about this, specifically because like the abilities of all these cards are like, really unique, like lead by example on Mulan, Tangle, and the daring exploit from Aladdin. Like they're all like pretty interesting lore gaining mechanics that I'm definitely intrigued to see more of. But since we haven't, it's like, what's really going to happen with this? So, you can add on a little bit here as I just covered some of the strengths. But is there any more strengths you'd like to add on there, Scott?
So it's interesting that it says the speed because most people would think that's rush. I think what it actually means is they have enough coming into play abilities.
Yeah, I also look at it like Mulan in way is like speed because she increases your momentum in the game.
Yeah. The late game of Ruby is just insane. Like it's absolutely the best in the game.
Really, really
I don't find it difficult to get to that point at all. But all its high cost characters. I mean, sort of with Brave Voltaire, but like the other two are very unique in what they do, and just absolutely dominate the board. Yeah, the high end is just insane. So like, it's just really really good.
Which makes the weakness so very obvious, Scott.
Yeah, they just don't have enough cards.
Yeah,
I don't think they don't have a single 3-drop. I don't think.
I think you're right.
Which is poor. They tend to fall behind early and need to come back, but they have to back and get all the way back. So there's that, but right as it stands right now, it's a very very controlling game. Even like Goofy, who I really like they don't always. A lot of their mid-range cards, like literally up to 7, need a turn to stay in play before they're usually bigger than what they're out there against. Right. But if you can survive to that point, it's good. It's just that they have to be supplemented with another color. Like obviously, there's no doubt. I mean, there's just not enough cards. But like their late game's insane.
I mean, 11 times 4 is only 44, Scott.
right. So.
But yeah, I agree. It was nice to see like the clarifications on some of the cards to make them a little bit better. But yeah, 11 cards, and like you said, there's not even a 3-cost card yet. They don't have a song yet either, right? Or an item. Like they don't have any of these things.
No.
So like they're definitely missing a ton of identity.
True.
So yeah. So our opportunity is we need all those things, right?
Right. Yes.
The opportunity is 3-drop.
Right. Right.
No, but I mean, honestly, it's like you said. Like the cool thing about this is that since the late game is so good, it pairs so well. With an amethyst or with a sapphire, because sapphire can ramp to it, of course, and then even steel has the ability to also pair with it. Like, and they all do something different when paired with ruby, which is really cool.
Agreed.
So like those decks all feel unique in their self, which is nice. But yeah, threats.
The early game,
yeah,
by itself. I know it's sad, but Donald Duck's like one of the better 2-drops in the game. But it's definitely like it can be sworn very easily as it stands right now. I mean, Dragonfire is really good, but it still costs 5 and it's uninkable. So
yeah, and it feels real bad when you have to Dragonfire or Pascal. So
yes, which I no longer have to do most of the time. But yes,
it just feels real bad. That's all. There's way more evasive cards now, thankfully. Yeah. But
yes.
There was a time where I'm like, man, I can't believe I have to do this.
Agreed. Yeah.
So, all right, let's get into the next color here. So, we've been pretty mean to this one.
In one video, we're mean to it, sure.
So Sapphire has 19 cards revealed, which honestly might make it even worse. But Sapphire Glimmers are intellectual, intelligent, and creative. Is that like not the same word twice that they even wrote on their own website?
It's a little. I'm
just saying, it's like
it's a little bit different.
They could have been a little more creative.
Sure.
In their own, whatever.
That's fair.
They excel at strategy, invention, and the arts. They can almost always know something, plan something, or invent something that will win the day. This is, I think it's a pretty accurate statement. I think a lot
of the bad cards.
Well, listen, I didn't say if it was good or bad. I just said that it's an accurate assessment of the ink. That's all. But yeah, I think it's a pretty good paragraph. It's already pretty fitting. You can already see a lot of the different synergies and strategies going into that. So, nonetheless, Scott, what are our strengths for this wonderful, wonderful ink?
Let It Go, 5-cost Aurora. Yeah. Merlin
just revealed today, real good.
I think that's it.
All right, cool.
I mean, ramp, but I'm not a huge, but like it's not as good as people think it is. Develop Your Brain is decent, and I there's synergy within the cards. It just doesn't. It's
not,
like
it's
the
just
item
like,
synergy just doesn't work that well.
it's really great to have synergy. But like if there's no payoff, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And that goes for the ramp strategy. It goes for the item strategy. Like the princess strategy. Like all of these are great synergizing things, but they just don't pay off. Like you can't win a game with 5 cost Aurora. Like she just doesn't win you the game in most cases. If you ramp into something big, that's great. But if your opponent just removes it and you have no card draw on your deck because you have no card draw on your deck, then like you just ramp to something that just dies, and then you're like, oh, well, here I'm going to draw my next card, and then it's Detective Mickey Mouse, and you're like, how do I win the game? So yeah, that's all the weaknesses, and there's way more. I'm just being kind at this point. But now the good thing is there's clearly a bunch of opportunity here, in my opinion. So what do you have so far, Scott?
I think just ways of playing things more fair is probably where the biggest opportunity is. Like just like play Ariel, and then next turn like just play an item and you get 2 uses out of her. For like a mini Moana type effect, even though she is a princess, for example. Like if you can find opportunities like that, I think that's where it really shines. I think trying to go all in on all these different types of synergies is where it kind of falls apart. I do think that with Merlin released, allowing you to swing way up the curve if he connects is really powerful. I do think pairing them, I don't know what, like I've seen people pair it with Emerald. I've seen people pair it with, I've tried pairing it with Amethyst and things like that. Because like I said, there's only so few like good cards that like if you draw into them, it's really good. I do think they have a lot of strength in the mid game. So like I really do like. I mean, Let It Go is really, really good, and like if you are able to get it, if you're able to sing it for free, like your turn 6 is going to be like I've done things like, again, you have to pair with other colors, but like if you play a 5-drop, sing Let It Go, and play Genie in the same turn, like it's a huge tempo swing of what goes on the board. So even though they don't have a ton of powerful cards, like if you do draw them in concert with one another, I think it can be very powerful. And I do think like it's like every time they get a card, like with Merlin today, like I couldn't stand like the 4-drop Aurora, but Merlin makes her really good.
Yeah,
for example, because she has like she's a 2/5 that becomes like a 5/5 if you connect with Merlin. So like she's a way of gaining like virtual card advantage. But I really just don't like the ramp package. Like playing all 8 of them is just bad in my opinion. So
yeah, I think it was literally the first day that we played the game. I was playing the ramp package, and I was just like, I was the opposite of lucky, where it was just like every single time I'm like, I played 5 ramp cards this game, and the biggest card I played cost 5. So it's like, what did I do, right? I do think there's opportunity for payoff within its own color.
Yeah, that's fair.
So there's definitely cards that can hit that will be impactful. We have to assume there's going to be a 5-cost Elsa or above. Things like that.
Yeah, it's true.
Just like more repetitive nature. Obviously, we don't know exactly everything, but I have a feeling there has to be some type of payoff within itself, in my opinion, and we can't just be always like, oh, I need to be with Steel or with Ruby to like even have a reason to do all these ramp things, because the moment you try to do all these ramp things in like the item thing, now you're gonna create so many cluttered draws that like even with the incredible mulligan in this game, you're gonna be in trouble. So like you don't want to be a part of any of these things. Threats.
The straight removal destroys a lot of these synergies.
Yeah.
So like it's really weak to its own.
It's really funny because like that's what like makes Aurora a pristine thing in the deck, but it's like that's all you have. So,
Yeah,
I agree.
You can't have like if you're playing Aurora like Stitch Rockstar where you can't expose her because you want to like protect somebody else, like you're not it's not going to go well for you.
You're
So
not drawing cards like you are with Citrus
right,
Fires. You're just
right.
hoping the next thing you play is like better than it.
Yeah,
it's really what you're doing. All right, let's go on to You're Welcome with Maui and Steel. So Steel currently has 18 cards revealed. Steel Glimmers are strong, large, and imposing. They are armored or just plain powerful. Steel Glimmers can apply huge amounts of brute force to get the job done, much like the big fat fatty that we have on screen here in Maui. So, I totally like get this, but and even like the whole challenger aspect of it really like just accelerates this, right? Like they have all these characters that have the ability to trade up really, really well when they're attacking. So I think it's very clearly one of the better attacking, challenging strategies. Of course, the problem with any of that is like all of these cards get verbally abused by a Rafiki and among other cards. Yes. So that'll be a part of the weaknesses in a moment here. But what are the current, what are the current trends of Steel?
The early game is really strong. Fire the Cannons is really good. Getting it back with Captain Hook is really good. So you have like virtual card advantage built in to where it's not like pure card draw, but it's like sort of card draw. Right. So it has a powerful early game. It's a very, very good support color because of its removal actions and damaging actions. I really like Cerberus as a mid-game threat that costs the same amount as the big removal. So like you're not actually losing much by playing him, and they like Dragonfire or Let It Go him. So like he costs the same amount as those, so you're not actually losing any tempo. And he is a commanding board presence when he's down there. So I mean, I think they have decent cards throughout the curve. I really like Hercules. So they have really solid bodyguard characters as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I'll move right to weaknesses with Hercules. There was a time where Hercules was just like unbelievable. But now, even if you're on the play or the draw, Amethyst just has like a straightforward answer to it, which is a bit disheartening, but doesn't take away from how good Hercules is. It's just it's just like a clear weakness to Rush that this is going to have. Like all these cards are great. They threaten really well. And a lot of the times early on, before we got more Rush cards, was like, oh, I don't mind if I swing my Captain Hook this turn because he can't swing back or he doesn't have anything in play. But now it's like, well, I'm going to quest my Captain Hook or I'm going to quest my Prince Eric, and now they just die to Rafiki and they don't really get any value out of them. And you're just like, this is a bummer. Same thing, depending on what your board state going in, a Zeus does a couple things like, hey, it probably removes your best card that you swung with, and then it forces you to like attack into him on top of that. So it still takes a tempo away from you, because if you don't swing into it, they just kill something else. I mean, obviously, if you're lucky enough, you have Fire the Cannons and you can get those synergies.
Then you only get 2 for 1.
Right. You only get 2 for 1. I mean, either way, I guess, you're not always get 2 for 1, but that is one way to do it if you're trying to like keep tempo within lore. I guess it's a cost to it, of course. But it's weird because if you really look at the 18 cards, it has a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
it even has like some inbuilt in board synergies with Captain Hook and things like that. And it clearly has a direction that it wants to go. But it does feel like weak along the way, and it might be because of the challenger aspect of like when challenger is good, it's great. But when it's Captain Hook is vanilla, and when it is Prince Eric is vanilla, and all of these cards are never truly utilizing challenger, then you're just playing with a bunch of vanilla understatic cards. And that's not going to feel very good. So you're going to have to like really leverage the removal that is currently being offered. But
the 2 biggest weaknesses I find with it is you have to play Fire the Cannons and Captain Hook, so you automatically have Uninkles in your deck no matter what you're pairing it with. So that can be a problem. Otherwise, I don't know what you're playing for.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess you can get away with like 6 or 7, but I wouldn't.
Right.
And then the lore values on the characters, even if like the board is clear, are all 1.
Right.
Like except for Kristoff, they're all 1. So like I've literally played against people that have like 5 characters in play, and I'm like, okay, you gain 5. Like, I'll give me a turn to like get back into this, and if I banish 2 or 3 of your guys next turn, like now you're gaining 2, and like I'm racing you with like 2 guys. Like it's not good. Like you it's not that hard to gain board presence, but it's hard to like pressure.
Right.
Given how many characters have really low lore values.
Yeah, there just isn't many of them that even have 2. Like,
right. I think there's 3 characters. There's 3 characters I think that have 2 or above.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a low. It's definitely a low count. So it is one of those where it's like you said, like you could have 4 or 5 guys in play, but your 4 or 5 guys is only representing 4 or 5 lore. So,
but if you ignore them all, right, which is never happening.
Right. So it's just like, it sounds good in practice, but
you're not putting any pressure on it.
So. Right. So what's our opportunity?
The removal paired with another color that actually can make up for those weaknesses. It makes a really great complementary ink. Again, you have to commit on inkables, but like if you just play like those, like Captain Hook, Fire the Cannons, Smash, and like one other card, you're usually okay. Right. So it pairs really well with Amber and other cards and like Amethyst that already have like a ton of cards available to them.
Right. I do have a very like this is like a real question here. What does Gantu do?
Nothing. Nothing.
Okay.
I mean, I guess he really hurt Stitch. That's the point, right?
Yes. I guess
he really hurt Stitch Rockstar decks, I guess.
Sure. I would be willing to bet that they're just going to turn their guys to Quest and
right.
Not
because they can only just not challenge, right?
Yeah. So like,
I've literally never seen the card in play. Ever.
I'm not.
And
shocked.
I watch a lot of content, and I play a lot of games, and I've never seen this card in play.
Yeah, I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked at all. So, nonetheless, what are our threats to steal?
The rush characters are really, like as you mentioned earlier, are really bad for them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
weird. You can never feel safe with your low power challenger guys exerted, because they're just going to get Rafiki'd or Zeus'd out. So
I do want to mention because I think we missed it in strengths. They do have like core pieces that are techie. Like
sure.
Limba, for example. A beast is currently the only way to interact with items. So like they do.
Beast Mirror is good. Beast Mirror is good.
Yeah, Beast Mirror is obviously very good too. So like they do have like these other aspects to them.
Sure.
Which is great because it means that you can build on those things, or it could just make this like a good complementary ink, which is likely where it very well could end up. Just based on a lot of the things that we said, but even with that, it's like you have to look at this for what it is, and if any metagame has a heavy favored Amethyst deck, it's gonna be really tough to get away with a lot of these low cost steel characters. Uh-huh. So that's a huge threat. Amethyst, the color, the ink Amethyst is just a threat.
Yes. Yeah.
And then even honestly, Ruby, like we're talking about catching up, like Aladdin hits the table against you and you're just like, well, that's like a time walk and a half.
Right.
So
yeah, because you're not gaining a lot of lore. So
you're not gaining lore. You like can't even lore, because if you do, you just lose it and give your opponent stuff. Like so, like there's clear threats to this like entire synergy, which is very problematic.
And again, if you 2-for-1 the Aladdin, the guys you have in play are gaining you like 2 or 3 lore. So it's like it's still not a threat to the board.
Yeah, big problem. So
Cerberus, man. That's why you need that boy.
Cerberus he's a big fat fatty along with Maui, so you can't hate too much.
I haven't seen him ever hit play either.
Yeah, I'm not shocked. What about? I mean, like I'm looking at the cards right now. Like Tinkerbell, like is that card?
Yeah.
That card even like card's not even playable, right? Like, man,
I don't think so.
and well, don't even get me started on frying pan. So we don't even need to get started on that.
Sure.
If you guys have been hanging out through this episode and you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button. We truly do appreciate it as we are continuing to grow. So, Scott, we're nearing the end here of this podcast, and we have been doing the contest every week. I think a very easy answer or easy question for the commenters today would be, what's your favorite ink so far and why? But with that, Scott, like, what is currently your favorite ink in the game?
Amethyst is not even close.
It's really hard to argue that. It's so good. So good. I enjoy Amethyst a bunch. I do also enjoy Emerald, probably because I beat myself up into playing it a bunch before it was even good. So like the moment it became good, it was like a nice refreshing touch. But yeah, I mean, I do think that Amethyst is very clear, like above and beyond, just better than everything else right now, and it's like not even close. And then like Sapphire is the polar opposite, where today helped, right? Like I think Merlin helped, and the card is very good, but I don't know if it's enough to like turn the tide yet. You know, obviously Donald Duck is not turning any tides from last week, so
No.
I think you still really need something to capitalize on with the ramp, like within its own color, to give it more of a fresh identity. And yeah, I don't know. What is really cool about some of the stuff that we didn't really touch on just yet is like the fact that we hadn't seen many songs or actions or inks at all in the past month now.
Sure.
There is definitely a lot of room for development just with that. I mean, we see what Amethyst does with just Friends on the Other Side. We see what Ruby can do with just having Dragging Fire. So like, and even like Sapphire with Let It Go, but like the action seems so powerful. At least the really, really good ones are really, really good in defining. And some of these inks don't have like true defining ones yet. So it'll be really nice to see some of those things. I mean, even like Lady Tremaine, the Evil Stepmother or whatever, like seeing an Emerald action that's worth getting back is something that's like still desirable. So
yeah, I agree.
I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But for everyone that hung out in the live chat today, thank you so very much. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you're listening on audio and you want to catch the visuals, check us out on YouTube. And of course, that is going to be it for us today. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, Scott, and see you guys on the next one.
Thanks, guys.